Welcome back to Truth Hurts. We expose corrupt politicians and lying corporate media. That's always coming for those lying corporate shills, the politicians that are bought and paid for by big interest and selling on you because they got this debt ceiling deal. It's crazy. It's terrible. It's awful for us, and we'll get into that today. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host. Joining me, as always, is the leader of the Political Junkie Pack, William Beck. How you doing, William?
Doing well, Jake. Wouldn't say I'm the leader, but I'm the only one here today. Fortunately or unfortunately, depending on.
I just give you guys shit all the time, you know. Who's the leader? I don't know. But
I don't know.
I wasn't going to call you straight-laced today because there's nothing about your outfit that's straight-laced.
What are you talking about? It's Hawaiian Tuesday.
Sure, we'll go with that, huh? Joining me as a guest is Mark Bashofsky. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's always a pleasure to be here, Jake.
Host of the Truth Expedition show, which you can catch on Rumble, which is awesome. He's got a lot of guests. Pretty cool show. I like it.
So far, so good.
And reading your comments at home, Bridget Williams. Bridget, how you doing?
I'm surviving. If you can't hear me, just tell me and I'll try to yell.
She's like, I don't know if I want to do a show. I got a raspy voice. Like, come on in. It doesn't matter.
I know.
She'll be reading your comments. Let us know where you're watching from and running the dials. It's not a monkey. It's not AI. It is Dawson, Mr. Deep State himself. Look at those eyes. Look at that guy getting so jacked now, lifting weights, doing 45-pound dumbbells on the military press. Look at that guy. All right. Let's get into this right away. You guys have heard about it. We're on the verge of catastrophe. Our economy is on the verge of catastrophe because we got this debt ceiling debate, and Biden, who said he wasn't going to negotiate, is now negotiating, and it's happened over Memorial Day weekend. They always do this. And apparently there's a deal with Speaker McCarthy. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, William. Wasn't this like the big part of the vote for McCarthy back in January?
Right. Some conservatives held out, and they said, we're not voting for McCarthy unless he agrees to this, this, and this. And one of the biggest ones was no debt ceiling increase. And not only are they increasing the debt ceiling, but Democrats pretty much got everything that they wanted, and Republicans are bragging about the smallest of things here. It's like 0.25% cuts or whatever.
I don't know how many people in our audience, because, you know, I think we're doing actually a really good job of bringing people from maybe legacy media, which includes Fox News, the guys that canned Tucker Carlson, and we're bringing them over to alternative media. So I think if you're watching legacy media, you're just not getting this perspective, okay? I think if you watch alternative media, you'll get some of this perspective, but I think we'll do a better job diving into the numbers. Deep State Dawson's going to hold me accountable if I get too technical, because I really like the subject. And trust me, Mark and I, we've talked about this a lot. We could get real deep on this stuff. In fact, Mark, I think this is the end of this segment will be why you should be prepping, right?
Yeah, the economy is not looking good. I mean, it depends on who you listen to, but you know, in my news feed, it's doom and gloom. Really, whether they raise the debt ceiling or not, something bad's gonna happen with this economy. The de-dollarization, and prepare for that. We don't know what's going to happen.
Well, I mean, just think about how healthy is the economy that this June 5th deal, like if we don't get this deal done, like the economy implodes, like that's not a healthy economy. Obviously, it's not a healthy economy. So what happens is, boy, this is so funny to talk about. So the government, this is how the government's finances work. They keep borrowing money because they don't have enough money of all the revenues that they bring in, which is less than $5 trillion. It's like roughly 4.7 trillion. They have over $6 trillion in expenses. So they got to borrow money. But, you know, they also, because they're borrowing money, they're not paying down the debt they already had. So they have to borrow money to keep this whole thing going, right? And so essentially, there's some, I don't know where this thing came from, but some statutory requirement that the government can only take out so much debt. And they keep kicking this can down the road. They've been doing this for, God, I don't know, at least since 2009 when I started paying attention to this stuff a lot. And so here we are again. They've hit that statutory amount, and they got a couple like accounting maneuvers. But Janet Yellen says by June 5th, we are going to default on the debt, which basically means the people that are owed money on June 5th, like they have a treasury bill or bond that's maturing that day, won't get their full payment back because we'll default on it. That's what we're really saying. And that's including Chinese people, right? Chinese investors. So that's what we're trying to stave off. Now let's pull up, Dawson, the deal that apparently McCarthy has agreed to. And at the time of this, what kind of ad is that on the right side? Jeez, looks like we got a Target ad on the right, huh?
I'm going to interrupt really quick
Go ahead.
because Tucker commented $10 for Rumble Rant.
Oh,
He
thank you,
said,
Tucker.
Memorial Day request, read the Wikipedia page of the 1st Minnesota Regiment, specifically their casualty rate and actions at Gettysburg, and compare their bravery to the cowardice of men today.
Oh, fair point. I wish you didn't get rid of that ad there, by the way, Dawson. That was hilarious. Because isn't this just your cookie? So it's saying like you're like trying to get ripped, and so it's showing you like how to get ripped ads. Is that not what I was seeing on that?
You would prefer for me to keep the naked men on screen?
No. I was just
It
saying.
was a ripped man, though. I
Yeah,
mean,
it was
so-
like
Yes.
that's what the ad was for. Is how to get ripped abs, right? Like, this is no
yeah.
joke.
Probably
He's-
just hears you talking about it all the time, so it's like, do.
Is that what's happening? It's hearing me
Probably.
like talk?
No. It's definitely. I mean, look, I don't know. I also don't know what this shirt on the left is. I think that's like some sort of brand that I don't follow at all. No, it's not following me very well.
Gotcha. All right. Here's what's in the deal. The deal raises the debt ceiling by roughly $4 trillion for 2 years and is consistent with the structure of budget deals struck in 2015, 2018, 2019, which simultaneously raised the debt limit. Now, mind you, the Republicans are using budgetary tactics as part of their deal for something that's not necessarily the budget. It kind of is, because obviously if they keep doing deficit spending, right? So they're actually not really budgeting well. They're failing at budgeting. It's not zero-based budgeting. They're overspending. But technically, they could come up with any deal in order to, give. I mean, isn't this funny? Give Democrats the win, because the Democrats do not care at all about how much government debt there is. Think about that. The winners here are the Democrats. There is no fiscal sanity from the Democrats. Honestly, if you can solve your problems by printing money, why do we even have an IRS? We'll get into that later, right? So essentially, this deal will raise the debt ceiling by $4 trillion. That's what's at stake here. According to a GOP one-pager on the deal, it includes a rollback of non-defense discretionary spending to fiscal year 2022 levels, which already was a blow to government, while capping top-line federal spending to 1% annual growth for 6 years. So what they're doing is they're freezing non-defense discretionary spending. So here's the total federal budget. And so you got Social Security and Medicare over here. That's non-discretionary. So that's out of the equation. So this is how much is left of the budget. Then they go non-defense. So then this is how much left is discretionary. And that's what they're gonna freeze at 2022 levels, and then they're gonna go to 1%. Now, this already is like a $1.5 trillion budget deficit. Let's go to U.S. Debt Clock. Pull it. You guys can do this at home. Go to usdebtclock.org. This is a great tool.
So let me get this straight, and for the audience too. So they're raising the debt ceiling by $4 trillion.
So yes,
And so what was it previously?
well, I mean, it's what
So
it
it's-
says right here. It's 30. We're at $31.816 trillion right now. You see it in the top
So
left.
they're going to raise that ceiling. It really
basically by
what does
$4
any of
trillion.
it even mean? And who are they borrowing from? The Fed?
Well, we have a lot of creditors. The majority of creditors are actually domestic investors.
So the bonds and
yeah, like you buy a mutual fund. I'm sure there's a portion that's buying U.S. Treasuries. There's a lot of internal people buying it. Like if you're invested in like a government pension and stuff like that, they're buying up the Treasuries, so they get a rate of return. It's kind of a Ponzi scheme when you think of it that way. And then you got foreign investors. And then one of the largest investors now is the Federal Reserve, which doesn't have the $5 trillion, $10 trillion, whatever their balance sheet is in U.S. Treasuries. It's just they create money out of thin air and then
Right.
buy up the debt.
But does this increase in the debt ceiling mean they're going to have to print even more money to meet this? I mean,
100%.
so yeah.
Unless you have a bunch of. So let's look at this. If you look at the top left, it says the total U.S. national debt. And this is what's great about usdebtclock.org. If you've never been here, you actually get to see the running totals as they're going, right? They're using some algorithm to figure out, because obviously the government's not showing you the current amount. So this is an estimation. And just look, I mean, it's going up by tens of thousands under a second. Tens of thousands per second in the U.S. national debt. By the way, if you're a taxpayer, which pretty much everyone that watches this show is, you owe $250,000. That's your current liability.
That's crazy.
Stop me if I get too much in the weeds here, because I know numbers just like people go in.
Well, this stuff is it's extremely confusing. I mean, to your average person, this is, and I think it's intentionally that way.
Right.
They don't want people to understand what's really happening and what consequences truly are.
Mark, put your mic up. I think are we losing some audio, Marks? Okay.
Nothing too important said there, but yeah.
No, I think it's very important.
I'm just trying to put myself from the perspective of the viewer, and I know most people, if they're anything like me, this stuff is confusing. I mean, I'm sure Jake, and William yourself too, probably dig into this a little bit more. And I don't follow national politics very much, so.
Well, Jake's a bit of a numbers nerd, so a lot of the stuff he says goes over my head as well. So feel free to be teaching us a little bit something here as well as the audience.
I mean, it really comes back.
Thanks for allowing me to do that, William. That was very kind of you.
Of course, I'll allow it.
Okay,
this
you
time.
allow it.
Yeah.
A lot of this just, I can't help but just think what I'm thinking is the interest we pay to the Federal Reserve is equal to about what we pay in income taxes, and it's just all fleecing us. And this is just another way to fleece us of even more.
Well, that's my big issue is, like, this is actually real numbers in the end. I mean, some of it's kind of phony. Like when the Federal Reserve just puts a zero on a balance sheet and then puts it in the account of the U.S. Treasury, I mean, it's not real money. So are those real numbers? I don't know if they're real numbers. I guess technically the damage is already done. They printed the money out thin air, right? But we actually do owe money to foreign investors, and we owe money to our own people. So that is a real deal. So let's break it down. I think that's fair. I'm just going to use the federal numbers, and let's break it down to like an individual perspective. If you look at the top left, the U.S. federal spending is $6.143 trillion. You see where it says that? It's right under the U.S. national debt. And then you got to go to the right in the green. It says U.S. federal tax revenues. That's 4.667. So basically, we take in 6.1 trillion, and I'm sorry, we take in 4.7 trillion, and we spend 6.1 trillion. All that really matters here is what is the budget deficit? How much are we overspending by? And that number's up in the top left. It says $1.476 trillion. Now, that's hard for us to understand. So let's put it this way. Let's imagine you got a job, and you're making $47,000 a year. Okay, you follow me? We have $4.7 trillion, so we'll just make it $47,000 salary. But you spend $61,000 a year, which means you're overspending by almost $15,000. The deal McCarthy is making right now is like saying, hey, instead of paying or overspending by $15.1 thousand next year, we're just going to freeze this at $15,000 overspending. Do you see the problem here? Mm-hmm. You're still adding more debt. And in this case, your credit card is already at $318,000. So you make $47,000 a year. You're overspending by $15,000 a year. And your credit card debt is $318,000.
It's quite a credit limit you have there.
There you go. And McCarthy and Biden are like, hey, let's give him more credit card debt, right? Let's increase his credit limit. Like, just imagine, no credit card company in their right mind would increase your credit limit. In fact, you know what's gonna happen to you? You're gonna be getting a lot of calls from some sketchy dudes who are like trying to collect the bill from you. And at this point, you don't have an active credit card because you have $318,000 and you keep adding more. You're not making the payments. Actually, in this case, what's really happening is you're making your credit card payments by taking out more debt. So your new credit card debt is making your credit card payments. You actually can't do that. You know that you can't do that in consumer debt? But they can do it. It's the federal government. And then in this case, they're also printing money. So like you're like taking, hey, I'm just going to go over to this printer and print some more money and pay it. So that's what's happening. And this is the deal that was made by McCarthy. Let's go back to that deal real quick. So obviously, just freezing the spending, you're still going to be spending that $15,000 more a year than you actually are earning. After 2025, there are no budget caps, only non-enforceable appropriation targets. So basically, they can spend recklessly again. Defense spending would be in line with what Biden requests in his 2024 budget proposal, roughly $900 billion. So this is the greatest thing. It's like we spend more on defense than like the next 20 countries put together, and we can't find a dime to be taken out of the defense budget and offense budget. I don't know why we just call it defense, because we're playing a little offense too. And I don't know if this is the line item, but I think it's the line item of all that Ukraine money that we're sending over there, right? That's probably getting wasted. By the way, the Pentagon, they can't account for trillions of dollars of money over the years. There's an audit, and they couldn't account for trillions of dollars.
Well, and here's what Republicans really should be pushing for, to defund all the woke recruitment efforts that they're undergoing.
Yeah, but see, William, that's the funny thing, and I agree with what you're saying, but what is that, like using our own scenario, it's like a fraction of a penny.
Yeah,
like
true.
It's nothing, right?
True.
So they're not solving any of these things. But it's funny you say that, because they always want to talk about deal fully funds medical care for veterans, including the Toxic Exposure Fund through the Bipartisan PACT Act, which not that I'm necessarily against it. I'm just saying it's like
Well, wait, so
fractions of
doesn't
pennies.
that fund transgender surgeries then?
Who has
For service
I
men?
don't know. I can't. Toxic Exposure Fund. That should be meaning like anti-woke stuff, right? Toxic exposure. The agreement increases the age for which food stamp recipients must seek work to be eligible from 49 to 54, but also includes reforms to expand who is eligible. So we tweaked the welfare program, but it's like, once again, fractions of pennies. It says claws back tens of billions in unspent COVID-19 funds. Cuts IRS. Okay, now this is the big one. Cuts IRS funding without nixing the full $80 billion approved last year. According to the GOP, the deal will nix the total fiscal year 23 staffing funding request for new IRS agents, but still allows them to continue hiring. And I think it was like, of the $80 billion, only $2 billion maybe scaled back, or under $2 billion.
And that was supposed to be their big leverage tool,
Supposed
right?
to be.
That's how McCarthy got in. It said he was going to get rid of this big IRS, armed IRS agents going to come bust in your house if you don't give them every 52 cents on the dollar, essentially, when it comes down to. Yeah, that pisses me off.
And then the last big talking point from McCarthy is basically no new taxes. When the hell was that on the table? You guys have Congress, or you have the U.S. House of Representatives. We would never get new taxes. But these snakes, that's what they're going to say in their talking points. So let's do this week's segment of the video breakdown. Video breakdown. Sorry, I got to come up with
Some good sound
We need to
effects
get
there.
Dawson
That's
to make
solid.
a-
come up
We
with
have a lot of
jingle on that
comments
one
too.
there. All right, let's go to comments before we do video breakdown.
Let's see. So Base Minnesota says, no doubt we're headed towards economic collapse. The goal is a central bank digital currency tied to your social credit score.
Yep, 100%.
That's what I see. To me, that's just hanging in the back of my thought process here. That's what's happening. I mean, they might have put it off a little longer here to prep for it, but it's coming either way.
And then P. Moore 1 had a comment. He or she is outside of Fort Benning, Georgia. And said, it's absolutely insane to see this nonsense is nationwide. What do we do when our votes and voices are shut down due to corruption and wokeness? And then added later that they don't want us to understand, then everyone would know they are thieves. Let's see what else.
I actually am having a hard time understanding Bridget today.
I know, I'm telling you
Voices.
guys. I told you it's going to be hard, but you said.
I still
It's
love
hard.
it, Bridget. We're glad to have you back.
Let's see what else.
Fort Benning, Georgia, by the way. That's where that person was based
Yeah.
at. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Infantry?
I don't
Hoo-ah.
know.
Airborne? Maybe airborne school?
Guess we'll find out. Let's see who else. There's a comment. K-Wall says paying interest on the national debt will cost more in 23 than the national defense. This is not sustainable.
Oh, yeah. Let's go back to U.S. debt clock. Great point, K-Wall. Is T-Wall with us today? K-Wall and T-Wall?
Probably. I don't know.
All right.
No comment yet, though.
That's a really good point. If you look down, can you hover over it with like a cursor, Dawson, or does that not work for people? Yeah, it does work. Okay. You see where U.S. or interest on debt, the net is? It's middle screen. Maybe yep, there you go. Perfect. It's at $575,000. I'm sorry, $575,000. Sorry, I'm a little bit off on that.
Yeah, I thought you were a
$575
numbers
billion.
guy.
$1 billion. $575 billion. And yes, it's a great point because defense spending is around $900 billion. Well, that's going to skyrocket as interest rates go up, which they already are. We were looking up interest rates before because I was saying 3-month Treasury right now is paying 5.5%. It's a great investment, actually, except for maybe they default on the debt. Because in the investment world, there's only one guarantee you can ever tell a client that's guaranteed, and that is a U.S. government treasury. So that's the big thing here is the politicians like, oh, my God, this whole thing is up if we can't guarantee that we're going to pay back our creditors. It's like, you're not paying them back. When you print money off thin air, you're not paying them back the same amount. Quite frankly, let's put it this way. If you invest $10,000 right now into, let's just call it a 1-year treasury bill, okay? 1 year, you invest $10,000, and let's just say it's 3%. It's somewhere in that ballpark. 3% you earn. That means in 1 year, you get your $10,000 back plus $300. Okay, that's 3% interest on $10,000. So now you have $10,300. But the rate of inflation, what is it at? 6-7%? So in other words, you're really losing like $600 to $700 worth of value of that $10,000 in that year. So in other words, the government's giving you back money, but it buys you less things a year down the road. And why do we have that inflation? Because that's how they keep this whole thing going, is they have to print money to keep this whole bloated government going. And so essentially, you're getting screwed by their accounting. You're getting completely screwed out of this whole deal. All right, let's go to this video breakdown. Now, this is fascinating. Kevin McCarthy is on Shannon Bream's. I guess I like Shannon. I don't watch Fox News at all. I certainly don't watch Fox Sunday. I used to watch it with Chris Wallace, and then he became so hard to watch. I'll put it that way. And then of course now CNN's got him. I think he found his right home. So Shannon Bream's got Fox News Sunday, and she's got Kevin McCarthy. And this must have been on Sunday. So she just had Kevin McCarthy this last Sunday over Memorial Day weekend. And listen to how he talks about this deal. And I'm going to stop it because I want you to just see how these politicians lie. And I think even Shannon Bream's kind of getting a little annoyed by these old tricks, these talking points. Go ahead.
Okay, I don't know how much rest you've gotten, but let's dive in because you got a deal and now you got to sell it to members. So let's talk a little bit more about some of those who are upset. Congressman Dan Bishop, Chad talked about him. He tweeted this after the call you had with the group last night. Heard the call. Rhinos congratulating McCarthy for getting almost Zippo in exchange for $4 trillion debt ceiling hike was enough to make you. And he used the vomit emoji. Actually, it's so bad they won't give a figure for the debt ceiling hike, only that it's suspended till first quarter of 2025. Our bill was a year less. Your reaction? He's probably a no vote.
Well, that's okay, because more than 95% of all those in the conference were very excited. But think about this.
All right, stop right there. Oh, it's so fun to watch these politicians. It's all pattern. I see it all the time. You see what he did? She asked him a question. She's kind of like saying, hey, how are you going to deal with these crazies in your caucus, or the conference they call them up there in Washington, D.C.? And so she poses this question. It's a very serious question. You have detractors in the Republican conference who aren't going to vote for this stuff. And he answers it for 3 seconds. And then he does this very clever pivot with a little bit of a pause. And now he's just going to regurgitate the talking points that were prepared. Go back 5 seconds. Watch this transition. And then this is his canned talking points on the subject matter.
Because more than 95% of all those in the conference were very excited. But think about this.
Pause. There we go. All right. Now, what are the talking points that were approved? Go ahead, McCarthy.
We finally were able to cut spending. We're the first Congress.
Okay, that's false. Pause right there. You're not cutting spending. We just went through the numbers. You're not cutting spending. But guess what, in Washington, D.C., when there's projected growth of spending and you don't go that much, you don't continue to grow with it, that's cutting spending to these guys. It's so arrogant. I mean, they're freezing spending at best, once again, in a smaller portion of the budget. Once again, the biggest driver of our debt really is Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, those programs. And those are actually non-discretionary. So in other words, they can't stop that in just the regular budget process. And then you're not shrinking defense spending. So really it goes from here down to here. This is the budget, and all you're doing is freezing. So you're not cutting spending, Kevin McCarthy. That's just a lie. Continue.
for cutting spending year over year. So you cut that back. You fully fund the veterans. You fully
Okay,
fund
now stop there. Oh, wow. Who's against fully funding the veterans? I obviously have no issue with that as my brothers and sisters who served in the military. But you see how they got to throw out that little nugget like, now I'm warming your heart because we're fully funding the veterans. We're also, by the way, screwing over our veterans and their families because they're the ones that are going to be on the hook for this debt. Mind you, $250,000 each one of these veterans owe with that national debt. But they throw that out there because it's the feel-good thing. All right, let's continue on.
defense, but you take that non-defense spending all the way back lower than 22 levels. Now you get work requirements for TANF and SNAP, where the Democrats said that was a red line. Now you're able to reform NEPA. How frustrating we are with.
No one knows what he's talking about, but boy, that sounds good. I guess the Republicans got to win. He's reforming NEPA, right? And mind you, I'm not saying I'm against that. I'm just saying that's not solving the problem. These are like pennies on the budget. Continue on.
Years since you could streamline it. To build a road in America takes you 7 years of review. We now limit that where it's focused, where you can only review it for 1 to 2 years.
Well, thank God we got it down to 1 to 2 years. You know, Mark, I was thinking the largest problem for America was the 7 years it takes to build a road. But now that it's down to 1 to 2, go on. Let's continue taking on another $4 trillion of debt that we have no way to pay back. Right?
Yeah,
we just solved the issue right there.
Gives you the feel-good nugget and then just throws out a bunch of bullshit just, you know, that nobody really understands. What does that even mean? It means nothing to me, you know.
Well, I mean, essentially McCarthy's talking to the creditors out there, right? He's on a major media platform. He's talking to creditors. They're watching this thing. And it's like you talking to the, you know, once again, remember, you got $318,000 in credit card debt. You're adding $15,000 every year on the credit, if we're using those analogies again. And you're talking to your credit card company, goes, well, guess what? You know, my driveway, you know, I wasn't going to retar my driveway this year, but now I'm going to retar it next month. And the credit card company's like, well, okay. What does that have to do with $318,000 you owe us, right? So apparently that's the big win for Kevin McCarthy. This is where he really forced Biden's hand. And once again, I got to say, Biden is the guy bringing on the Democrat side coming to the negotiating table from a position of, well, everything's fine. We don't have to do anything. You know, at least McCarthy has to represent the alternate view thanks to the House Freedom Caucus, because I don't think he really cares about this stuff. Hey, by the way, if you're watching from Minnesota, which a lot of you guys are, where this really hits home, you know who's going to go whip these votes for Kevin McCarthy? It's the whip. It's the majority whip. That's Tom Emmer. CD6, Minnesota. Tom Emmer is going to be the whipping boy for this crony, swampy deal. Mm-hmm. All right, let's finish this thing out, because I think the last thing he says is just a golden nugget.
We're going to get America working again. We get the process working again, where we always have these omnibuses at the end of the year. We now penalize the Congress if they don't get their jobs done. There is
Look at her.
so
She's
much
like,
in this
this guy's so full of shit.
Measure it to all the other debt ceilings. When Republicans had the presidency, the Senate, and the House, did they ever cut spending? No, they increased it. We were able to do this when the president said he wasn't even going to talk to us. This is really a step in the right direction. It puts us a trajectory that's different. We put a statutory cap on only spending 1% for the next 6 years. So we let government grow, but at a slower rate.
That's what he says at the end. We're letting government grow, but at a slower rate. And that's it. It's like Republicans, you always hear it. The Republicans or Democrats going 60 miles an hour or going the speed limit or whatever it is, instead of 100 miles an hour, right? Mm-hmm. They're all going the wrong direction. This is the wrong direction. They're not solving anything. And so, Mark, that's why I want to have you on the show today, because I'm like, you know, Mark's got some theories where this is all going, because it's not going in good places.
Well, no, I believe, you know, I believe this is the controlled demolition. I think the dollar's basically worthless. It's full of air. It started in 1913, and it was a Ponzi scheme, this fractional reserve banking. And I'm no expert with it. I read a lot of what experts say, and I just believe that, you know, the economy's going to crash no matter what happens.
Well, and
I don't trust any of these people. He's just a smooth-talking ass.
Well, and I think you say crash, and I think a lot of people use that term. I just think it's going to be a Great Depression. I think everything's moving towards another Great Depression Great Depression 2.0, the new Great Depression. I don't know what they're going to call it, but that's where we're heading.
Great Reset. I don't think anyone really knows what might happen.
Right.
What the central bank digital dollar? What if the internet does come down like is being predicted? I mean, like look at Mayo was issued. A bunch of the senators were issued satellite phones, if not all of them. Mayo's
Wait a
getting
second.
ready.
Hold on.
what is this?
Hold on. I don't know about this. What is
Mayo is getting ready for a potential internet outage by still doing things on paper. I mean,
this? No,
and
no,
like-
no. Did you just say Congress was given?
Yeah, check it out. I didn't look into it. I saw
You
a
fact
couple,
check. Go look this
I
up.
heard a
check
little bit
that.
about this too. I don't know the details though.
and
I'm
so
very
and
interested in that.
a couple experts I know, my friend Doug. One of my last show on the Truth Expedition. Doug is an internet expert. And the way he describes it is, we're on the inside of the internet. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on Amazon. He's on the outside. He senses the walls closing. He's in the dark web. He understands all of what's happening. He's like, it's closing in. They had Cyber Symposium where the World Economic Forum is prepping for an internet outage. And they want this, I believe, and Doug predicts the internet is going to come down this fall. Will it be for 2 days? Some people say it's going to require 10 days. But that will then usher in more BIOS. Will you then need facial recognition to access the internet? How much control, and then to usher in the central bank digital currency? I believe this stuff, and that's a conspiracy theory. But if indeed the Senate and Congress is getting satellite phones, they've had all these pandemic simulations for this. It's going to happen.
What did you find, William? Did you find something?
Yeah. So CBS News reported this. Senators issued satellite phones, offered demonstrations on upgraded security devices, and this is all stemming from the idea that there are growing security concerns. I've also seen news segments talking about the potential for cyber terrorism
It's
and
predictive.
terrorism on
You
the
know, I
power
actually
grid.
I could make an argument for this, okay? Because one thing that we saw during the COVID pandemic is this consolidation of power in the hands of governors. Luckily, Trump was president then, because if Biden was president, I'm sure it would have been all done on Washington, D.C. It would have been way worse. But like Tim Walz just took over basically Minnesota government. And our argument in the drafting the Never Again bill is that what kind of emergency needs such huge response that current laws don't already allow a governor to respond to, where our state reps and state senators can't at least convene, even if it was like from afar, to decide this stuff. But we can't have one guy making these decisions. And so in that case, the satellite phone will be good, right? Because then just imagine a disconnected Congress. As bad as Congress is, I mean, I'm just shitting on Congress here, right? I've been shitting on them this whole time. It's far superior than just one guy calling the shots, especially when that one guy is Joe Biden, because no one actually believes it's that one guy. They believe it's someone behind that one guy, right? Yeah. That guy's just following orders. So in that case, I would make the argument, yeah, at least we want Congress connected.
But
it is interesting they're giving satellite phones, right?
They're definitely preparing for something.
And it's predictive
to happen,
programming. They did it with the COVID pandemic. It's going to happen. And it is a conspiracy theory at this point, but I mean, I'd like to know what the audience thinks. I bet you most people believe that, it's...
Based Minnesota said Mark is correct. I could definitely see a false flag cyber attack blamed on another country, China perhaps.
Absolutely. Will it be a hacker? Will it be some virus? Or what will it be? But, then they can really, in order to get back on now, you're going to have the facial recognition software on your computer to access the internet anymore. And then they've got you. They've totally got you. And then the CBDC comes in, and then it's over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And social credit score. So, hey, now you got to opt into this program, right?
Yep, carbon credits.
Yeah.
Which they're doing. I mean, I think New York State is doing that now. They're following people's meat purchases, and they're going to limit that. I mean, it's coming. Yeah. It is coming.
We're already seeing it with the ESG scores, right? So corporations are already being held liable to this stuff. So it's only a matter of time before it comes down to the people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have some more comments here. K-Wall for Life gave us $10 and said, consider this from T-Wall. And then went on to say that he was referring to Tom Emmer as a complete disappointment. bragging about cancer.
Well, and let me comment on that real quick. So obviously at this point, Tom Emmer is not working for you. If you live in CD6, he's not working for you, right? His job is majority whip. It's the goofiest position out there, right? So essentially your job, to be a good boy, to do your job is to whip votes for the leader. And so his leader is not you, not the constituent. It's Kevin McCarthy and all the interest behind Kevin McCarthy. And all the interest behind Kevin McCarthy, which is probably Fox News. It's also probably Donald Trump. You know, have you guys noticed Donald Trump hasn't spoken out about this deal yet?
Well, he endorsed McCarthy, right?
Right. See, Trump's kind of in a weird boat. Jesse's probably listening to this on his drive home, and he's just like, I want to talk, 4D chess. But Donald Trump, I'm guessing McCarthy went to Donald Trump and said, hey, man, you got to have my back here. You can't be talking out against this deal.
Well, Trump wanted the U.S. to default. You remember the CNN town hall he did? He said, yeah, the United States should default.
I don't remember that part.
No, that's what.
But they've already defaulted. That's the thing. I can't remember that. Well, regardless, once again, there's a deal now. And if he speaks out against McCarthy, I mean, McCarthy is going to have everything coming against him because DeSantis has already spoken out against it, right? So now if Trump speaks out against it, which Trump can't speak in favor of it, he's out of line with the base. Hence why Trump has been silent. I don't know. I mean, all we can find out is on True Social. Old Navy joins growing list of companies closing downtown San Francisco. Wow.
Dover Dan's, his opinion is he thinks that the reason Starlink has been started is possible 10 days of darkness.
Yeah, they say 10 days is what it's going to take to transfer the system over to their biosecurity system.
Wait, they're saying that they do that through Starlink, or Starlink is like the way to prevent that?
I don't know.
Well, to prevent it, because then, you've got satellite controlled internet.
Right. That's what I would think.
Satellite, but something in the sky. So here you go. I mean, Donald Trump's True Social, and, and here we are, 1:37 on Tuesday, and this deal has been at least broadcast since Sunday morning. I mean, Donald Trump's talking about Peggy Noonan of the Wall Street Journal, just talking about the DOJ and FBI. He's talking about Russia, Ukraine on True Social. He's not talking about the debt deal.
So what I think Kevin McCarthy could be done, though, because he made this deal. The House Freedom Caucus released a statement saying that if this passes, they're going to call for a vote to vacate the chair.
Now, here's the interesting thing about it. If you're a Democrat, why are you not voting for this thing? Like, McCarthy's got the Democrat votes at this point, right? At least a substantial amount of Democrat votes. This is the bipartisanship in Washington, D.C. that really sucks. They're really here to screw you. Once again, they're just adding more debt. So $4 trillion divided by Minnesota or American taxpayers. I mean, we're talking about, what is this?
How many
tens of thousands of dollars more?
Because there's 330 million people, but how many people are, qualify as taxpayers?
We could a lot less than we'd think.
A couple hundred million, maybe.
Well, qualified as taxpayers versus how many people actually pay taxes.
Right, that's a whole different story.
Well, we could look this up real quick because they did this math already on U.S. debt per taxpayer. So it says you're basically $248,000 per. That's the taxpayer liability. So that means they divided the amount of taxpayer. So they divided the amount of taxpayers from the total U.S. debt. And that's how they derive that figure. So all we have to do is divide that $248,000 from U.S. debt. Oh my God! It's always a bad idea to do math on the fly, right? But let's just go ahead and do this thing. So I got rid of the zeros there. 0.248. This is a really dumb idea, Jake. 120. Oh, I did it right. 128 million taxpayers.
That's
128 million taxpayers.
People, that makes sense.
So if it's 128 million taxpayers and we had $4 trillion in debt, so let's go. That's 4 trillion minus 128. That's another $31,250. I hope I did the math right. $31,250 that this deal is going to put on you. That sounds right, right? $31,250 more of your share of the debt.
And I just wonder, from the perspective, just say you're super woke liberal, where do they see this? I mean, at what point does your average Democrat, left-leaning, start to care about the debt? I mean, they just think it's okay to continue printing. This is never going to come back to bite us. I mean, I don't understand their perspective. It can't continue. There will come a time, whether it's a year or 10 or 20, but all of this debt will come back to bite us.
Well, think about this. I mean, the people in this room, which kind of understand this issue fairly well, right? I don't even know when the jig is up, right? Like, essentially, the problem here is, well, there's one of two problems that happen, right? You either print too much money and inflation's completely out of control. And it already is out of control. That's why the Fed is, like, increasing interest rates. By the way, Donald Trump wants to lower interest rates. so essentially, inflation gets out of control. That's what they have to do is they have to tighten the money supply by increasing the interest rate. So either you have runaway inflation, or the other problem is you end up having too large of interest payments where it consumes so much of your debt. But I think actually both end up in the same part, because if you have too much interest payments, then the only way out of it is to continue printing more money. So I guess that's the only way this thing could go, is we have to just continue printing money, because we're printing more money than we've ever printed ever, and it keeps in this. And by the way, this we went on steroids during COVID, so it's the internet crashes or the next pandemic, which Bill Gates has talked about, right? There's going to be another one. So it's just one more of those issues, and they're going to be like, well, government needs to print more money. And so that just exasperates the problem much more. And so I don't see how you get out of it. By the way, I guess I could be wrong on all this stuff. Printing money and taking out debt is a path to prosperity. I don't know anything about finance, obviously.
Right,
that's obviously a path to prosperity.
Well, you've got that, and then the de-dollarization. So, the India, Russia, for the petrodollar is now losing its significance. People are going to use the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, whatever those countries are. So some of those dollars will come back home to nest. So there'll be so many dollars that each dollar is going to be worth less. And then the printing, I mean, and so what is the dollar worth? What we believe it's worth? I mean, that is backed by our trust, right? Mm-hmm. That's it. There comes a time where it's going to completely collapse.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just and that's why I think there's a Great Depression, and it's been mounting for years. I'm sorry,
we have an
gone away
comment.
from comments. I want to hear what these people have said.
Epic CJ24 Williams on YouTube said, a bill was bundled into an omnibus bill in Minnesota this session, agreeing to give the governor emergency powers if there is a cybersecurity attack.
Did we miss that?
They're ready for that.
Which is crazy.
I'm not tracking that. What was that?
I have not heard anything about that.
Tell us which bill you're referencing.
Also, is there any relation there?
No.
Okay.
I have no I mean, if it's Minnesota, I have no relatives in Minnesota.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
So.
No, I'm not tracking that. I wonder if Mega Jesse is. He was the one that was tracking legislation. But I mean, honest to God, I don't even know if it matters anymore, because if you looked at the emergency powers under Chapter 12, the governor never had the ability from the first place to respond to the pandemic, because it would assume that there was like two things, and they took out like public health or something like that, and it was also like if resources at the county level were capable of doing it. Like, they just didn't follow the law from the first place. Mm-hmm. So it didn't even matter. So, if they expand it, which I would obviously be against, but it's just like they're going to do whatever they're going to do, because guess what? There's an emergency. And if you look up dictator in the dictionary, it's someone with absolute power in an emergency, because that's what they always do. They need an emergency. In fact, Biden, in many regards, maybe wants an implosion of the debt because, hey, I'm the president during an emergency, and we have to consolidate power. Kevin McCarthy in Congress failed you. We need to take drastic... Well, they were already saying that. They were saying they had the constitutional authority by the 14th Amendment to continue making the payments of debt. So they were already signaling towards that. Yeah, we got zero from this thing. Zero. That's McCarthy selling you out. Luckily for us, there's a couple people with some sanity in Washington, D.C. that are fighting against this stuff. The Eli Cranes of the world, Bob Good. Is it Bob Good? I'm already forgetting the name.
Sounds familiar. Chip
Roy, just to name a couple of people that are actually very vocally against this kind of stuff. Actually, I had a list somewhere here. Someone was writing it down, like how many people. Dan Bishop, there's another one. Keith Self. These are some of the representatives. Boebert, of course. These are the people that would be against this stuff. But they don't need their votes because guess what? The Democrats are going to vote for it. Why wouldn't they? I mean, it's a good deal for them. So, yeah, we have completely screwed ourselves here. And I'm not saying, like, just because this deal went down, like, it's the final straw. I don't know what the best deal they were going to get out of this thing. It's not like they would actually got rid of the budget deficit. There's no appetite for that in D.C.
Right. Well, and they extended it to January of 2025. So even if we get Trump back in office or DeSantis, whoever, even if we have a completely Republican-controlled Congress, they're going to have, a couple days at best to really act on this. So they're just going to pass another debt limit increase.
That's a great point. And that's how they think in D.C. is we've got to solve the immediate political problems, right? That's why the Kevin McCarthy's work. They go on Fox News and they just regurgitate the damn talking points because they want you understanding that the Democrats are the real problem. And that's why we have to elect more Republicans. Well, by golly, we got to win the presidency and we got to win back the Senate. And I'm just at a point where I don't really believe any of these guys are going to solve the problem anymore. And you look over at France, they touch their pension program and people are marching on the street. So imagine if you see, that's the other thing is if we want, remember that budget, here's the big budget, right? And non-discretionary Medicare, Social Security, they get rid of that. It's just this much that's discretionary. You get rid of defense, you get rid of that. That's the rest of the budget right there. And that's the only thing they're touching. So really the driving force is the defense budget. And what they'll always say, oh, so you want to defund our military and you want to put and hurt our veterans? It's like, no, maybe we shouldn't buy a gazillion new jets or warships or something like that. How about we don't do that, right?
Actually, there were some proposals that cut Medicare and Social Security, and we had a surplus at that point if you did that. I know that's not a popular proposal, and even Trump is saying don't touch Social Security, but that would solve a lot of our problems.
That's the thing. That's the thing is you have to touch those programs. No one wants to have that conversation. They're all lying to you. You can't solve our fiscal problem without touching the programs that are actually driving us further into debt. And when I say $31 trillion, I don't know if anyone said this in the comments yet. We're just talking about the current liabilities. There's $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities going forward. What they're projecting is going to end up happening. It's just going to get far worse. So, there's this conspiracy I had, Mark, for a little while is God, is COVID only killing the elderly? Because that's the only way to solve our fiscal woes is
I think
kill
you're
the
right
people
to
that
a
are
certain degree.
Right?
And people that are really sucking off the Medicare system, people that were ill, diabetics really needing a lot of medical care.
Yeah.
So that it really did. I mean, if that was, what a brilliant plan from their perspective, and it kind of worked that way.
Well, in the end of the day, it didn't kill enough of them, right? And then they tried getting the vaccines to kill more of them, right? No, think about this real quick. This is the driving force: is Social Security, Medicare, which is for the elderly, so medical care for the elderly. So if you no longer have to make those payments, those outlays go away, right? Because you've killed the population over 65. So you just saved all that money, right? And then, you kill all the people over 65. Those are the people with all the money, essentially, in our economy. They're the ones that are savers. They've gotten to a point where they got a nest egg. Well, what happens to that nest egg? It goes to the inheritance. What does the inheritance do with it? Well, our age, we're close to the same generation, and you guys, I don't know what you guys do for spending. You
I don't want to talk about
it. Gen Zs. But our generation will probably blow it. We'll start spending like drunken sailors, and the government then collects revenue on that. Or depending on how the inheritance passes to us, they still collect too.
Right.
An IRA, it's got to still be taken out max or minimum required distributions. If money wasn't protected by it, their wealth wasn't protected in a trust, they get a big chunk of change. So yeah, the government's like, hey, now there's more revenue there. That's the conspiracy. I'm just joking. I don't believe that for a second.
Didn't they expand the amount of people that are eligible for Medicare for the pandemic? It was 60 million people up to 100 million people were then eligible. When I interviewed Scott Scher, he brought all this up, and that then they can control more of the healthcare system, this whole collectivism type of healthcare. So the more people they can get under that umbrella, the more they can control it and have their death panels. And
I don't think that could be. I think I know something of what you're saying, but it can't be that substantial because then obviously the program would have been bankrupt real quick, right?
Yeah,
taking on that many more people.
I'd have to look closer at it, but if you follow Scott Shera on Rumble, he's got the documents. I mean, he's really followed that very closely after they murdered his daughter in a hospital.
Well, we do have a solution here. This is the best solution. What we need to do is the U.S. Treasury needs to start its own program, its own internship, and they should only hire non-white people. Let's pull up this article William just published on Action for Liberty. Non-white people. See, if the
I wrote
if the
this
Treasury
article. I didn't
would-
know where you were going with
Yeah,
that.
I know. I knew you wouldn't know where I was going with that. If the U.S. Treasury would only adopt the policy of University of Minnesota, what the heck's going on at the University of Minnesota there, William?
Yeah, I mean, to nobody's surprise, the university's being woke, but this is particularly egregious because they're publicly saying, yeah, we don't want white people. We only want non-white people or Native American people to apply for this internship.
BIPOC. Right?
BIPOC.
Black, Indian, and people of color.
Right.
Oh,
And-
wait. No, because they don't want Asian people either, right?
Yeah, they didn't explicitly say Asian people, but we know that Asians are discriminated against in higher education.
Yeah.
Um,
What about Pacific Islanders? Can they have Pacific Islanders?
we'll have to consult the woke
It
gods on
is.
that one.
I think it is Asian and Pacific Islander month, isn't it? Heritage Month. I'm
You
pretty
clearly
sure I
know
got that
more
right.
about this stuff than we do.
Well, I mean, if you're Asian or Pacific Islander, I think you're pretty upset because Pride Month has now taken over your month too. You know, I saw this really interesting meme yesterday, and it's like Memorial Day. Like unanimously, everyone supports Memorial Day, remembering those that paid the ultimate sacrifice. Those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom get one day, and Pride Month gets a whole month.
Actually, if you ask Senator Judy Seeberger, yesterday was Veterans Day, not Memorial Day.
No.
She
What?
accidentally
Are
tweeted
you
out like
serious?
happy Veterans
She did
Day.
not.
And then the comment she's like, sorry, I meant Memorial Day.
But you got screen capture, right?
Someone does. Someone sent it to me.
Oh,
So yeah.
well, that's great. That's hilarious.
It is
She doesn't
hilarious.
even
Wow.
know.
Yeah.
How do you even make that error? Like
Some-
everyone, even if you don't know what Memorial Day is for, which is sad,
Yeah.
everyone knows Memorial Day is like the start of summer in Minnesota.
Right. Some liberal legislative aide she has, I'm sure, messed it up. But yeah, back to this. It's a paid internship, so you get a $6,000 stipend for a 10-week research opportunity. Now, the University of Minnesota is pretty quick to back off of this once they receive public backlash. And there's even a complaint filed by a Cornell law professors, which, Cornell isn't the most conservative institution in the nation. So it's great to see, and it just goes to show that when the public fights back against this stuff, we're seeing it with Bud Light and with Target, they have to bend to our will. So there's still hope for the culture war as long as we keep the heat turned up. So look, they don't care that they got caught. They're going to keep doing this stuff. Don't send your kids to University of Minnesota. Encourage them to drop out. Encourage your friends to transfer, whatever. We got to keep the pressure on these guys. That's the only way we can get real change.
So you bring up Target, and I've been gone. So I went backpacking with my dad up in the SHT, so that's northern Minnesota. A lot of fun, Mark. A lot of fun. And, I tried getting out of the news cycle for a little while. I mean, how bad is this Target thing blowing up? I mean, it seems like it's getting smacked in their face a little bit.
And they've lost $10 billion
Yeah, it's up
already.
to
In
10
equity?
billion now.
Yeah.
It supposedly is worse than the Bud Light hit.
So
Paywall
yeah,
said the boycott Target. I actually heard this. The boycott Target song is #1 on iTunes, bumping out
yeah.
Taylor Swift.
Oh, yeah.
Which is amazing.
So who sings this song? I heard about this. I have not heard this song.
I haven't either.
Oh, well, there we go. Let's break it here on live. Let's all listen to it the first time. Is it on YouTube? I have to ask that question. It's probably not. Is it on Rumble only? Do you have any idea?
No, I have no idea.
I have no
Dawson,
idea.
you want to find, what's it called? Boycott Target?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
funny because they actually filmed
Yeah.
it inside of Target.
They did?
Yeah.
Oh.
I've seen screenshots of it. I haven't actually watched the thing, though.
But here's the problem is what's the alternative? You go to Walmart? Like,
Well, yeah, it's a music video. Of course you're going to go to
what is
Target
it?
to film
What
it.
is it this rap looking video? Is that what it is?
I haven't
Yeah, I
watched
think
it. I
it's-
don't know.
I hope we're watching the right one. Okay, this is the one that's going viral, huh? Wait, how many views does it have?
That's barely viral.
And it's viral in conservative circles.
Okay, it says
Well, it's
official.
#1 on iTunes. That's kind of crazy.
It's #1 on iTunes. All right, I hope we're watching the right one. Let's go ahead and watch this. We need Jess to get a number 47 hat like that. That's hilarious. Wow.
Huh.
Not bad, huh? Not bad at all. Who are those guys? I've never even seen them before.
I think I've seen them do stuff before. No, kind of goes hard.
Their
But,
big thing is they're like Trump people?
oh yeah, no, they've done pro-Trump stuff before. I think.
What was what did they say it was topping?
Well, yeah, and that's
On
the thing.
iTunes, number 1 on iTunes.
It's number one. How
Topping
long?
Taylor Swift. I've seen articles about that too, though.
Yeah.
I've heard
Like how many days did they top Taylor Swift?
I don't know.
Jeez.
What was
Isn't
weird
She,
is-
isn't she do ads for Target? Isn't Taylor Swift?
Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
I
feel like
I
she
couldn't
is.
tell you.
Interesting stuff.
Based in Minnesota said Walmart has a Pride collection. Also, these companies all answer to a higher cabal.
Yeah, I mean, weren't you saying that before we went on air, Mark? It's basically go shop at the least woke place now, right?
Well, yeah, BlackRock owns all of them. So if they all go woke, it's just really hard to boycott. So I
Right.
think, Kohl's recently, yesterday I read an article that apparently Kohl's is now woke. They have, infant trans wear, and I don't think it's as in your face as Target, but they're all.
Well, here's the
woke.
thing about it, though. They've been doing this stuff for years. Maybe they've taken it to another degree this year with, like, the kids tucking wear or
Is
whatever.
that what?
but-
That's what I was wondering. Is that what did it finally? Is the tuck in?
Well, I think that, and I think conservatives feel really empowered based on the Bud Light boycott success.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Target hired that Satanist
Yeah, that
artist.
too.
That was
too.
where he's producing the clothing that says Satan respects trans kids.
Oh,
or
whoa,
something.
whoa. Okay, so that
And now,
I saw a
don't know if-
Babylon B thing. I had no idea what the reference was.
I don't know if they're selling that shirt.
They're not
at
selling
Target,
that one.
but he's got artwork, literally, Satan respects trans, and the same artist is making this. Tuck.
Google that for us. Let's look this up.
Satan respects pronouns.
Oh yeah, maybe it
Yeah.
was pronouns or.
Yeah.
Why would? Oh yeah, respects pronouns.
Yeah,
Why
that's
would-
on his website.
Oh well, first
He has,
of
like,
all,
a whole Satan
Reuters
themed
does
line.
Reuters does a fact check before we get into
Right.
it. So
Fact checkers.
Target did not sell a pin that says Satan respects pronouns as part of its Pride collection, which is not what you said, by the way, right? Viral online poster sharing a pin by designer that did collaborate with the retail giant on the other items, which is funny because they quickly want to fact check it, but
Yeah.
essentially they said everything you just said, right?
So yeah, I mean they're willing to hire and team with this Satanist who produces this shit. Why wouldn't we be pissed off? Who agrees with this?
Right.
1% of the people who are Lee Finke? I mean, who agrees with that?
Well, that's the scary part. That number's rising. It's not just 1% anymore. I think like 25% of Gen Z identifies as LGBTQ.
Yeah. But do they agree with Satan, that kind of thing?
Well, that's the thing. I think we're going to get there because
Yeah,
all
you're
the mainstream institutions are now promoting this stuff.
You're probably right, man.
And that's why that number is so high now.
They've indoctrinated. 100 years of indoctrination is in full force right now.
Right.
If we go back to what we were talking about before, when it comes to this imploding financial system, and what I would think is the new Great Depression, are we even gonna give a shit about these pronouns and all this bullshit? And then, because if you can't feed your family, we don't have time to worry about this stuff anymore. That's the luxury of our economy, is that we're so advanced that they start designing ladies' swimsuits where you could tuck your junk into it. They ain't doing that
I
stuff.
just think, why is it so why the whole trans thing right now? Is it deflecting us from paying attention to what might be coming with the economy?
Could be, but I always think it's just this thing of the economy. But it's also the tool of the Marxists to put people in groups and deliver rights to those groups and divide us amongst the groups. And that's the thing that I'm always concerned about, is if you have some Great Depression, you're also going to have government get very active and take on new powers. This happened, as you referenced, back in you were talking about 1913, the beginning of the dollar, but of course, in the Great Depression, the government started the Great New Deal, or the New Deal. Sorry, not the Great New Deal. They'll have a Great New Deal. That's essentially what I'm trying to say, is they're going to have some other expansion of government programs.
Yeah.
And so, that's the direction we're heading in. And then, of course, the communists, the Marxist types, are going to want to go that direction. And this is part and parcel. What they do is they divide us into groups, then they deliver those groups rights. And then, of course, the non-woke people, or the bourgeoisie, are the people that are against us. And we have to take over their land and their power, and that's essentially the tool for all these tyrants.
Two classes, the oppressed and the oppressors.
Correct.
We're the oppressors. And that's
Yes,
Marxism
and we're the oppressors.
to a T. Yeah, it's crazy. And a lot of conspiracy theorists are calling this the year of the Jubilee. If you've heard of that biblically, it's where all debt is washed away. And, just something along those lines happen where we have this, universal basic income, and then like almost communism just, ushered in.
Dawson, did you find the image here? I found it. Looks like it's a horned goat with it says Satan protects or respects pronouns. Just a Google image search found. Yeah, you can see it. There you go. So apparently this is the artist that teamed up with Target. Looks like looks like the fact checkers had to at least admit that.
Yeah.
Satan respects pronouns. Like, who thinks that's a great idea? And by the way, how long until Peggy Flanagan, our lieutenant governor, wears that shirt too?
And that's the thing is, Target did this. They had to know that this guy had this artwork. They had to know. They're not stupid. They chose to do this knowing they were going to get boycotted. They had to know.
Do you think so?
They had to know.
Don't you think, though, Bud Light, that was just like a complete screw up? Like,
I don't. I think they would know that that's going to really irritate people.
That's what somebody's asking. They're like, why would they do that if they're just going to get boycotted?
Well, I don't think they knew. I think they thought they were immune. And they're trying to meet these scores. It's not an ESG score. There's a separate score that's set up by this multinational corporation. And shareholders like BlackRock probably requires this stuff. Otherwise, the heads or the CEOs are going to get fired.
Corporate officers are, I think, liable, at least liable, if not criminally liable, to best represent value for the shareholders. So if they literally know that this is going to take them, I'm pretty certain there's a criminal code that would put them in jail.
It's fiduciary.
No, let's be honest.
Duty.
No Biden Justice Department prosecutors going after them. Let's be honest about that. I mean, if you're the 45th president of the United States, let's find a ton of stuff on him. But none of them are going after these guys. But you actually have to look out for the value of your shareholders.
Right.
And so it does beg that question. If they know it.
I feel like they had to know. How can you not know? I mean, I just
because they've been getting away with it for years. This pride stuff's not new.
Right.
I was kind of curious. So I was at Starbucks with my wife, and this was the first or second weekend of May. I think it was second weekend of May. And I turn around because Starbucks. We go to the same Target, or used to go to the same Target, right, Mark? Because Mark and I live pretty close to each other, so we're in the Stillwater Target, and Starbucks right there at the beginning, and so you turn around and there's the first display. Basically, everyone walks by it. It's the Pride display. I remember grabbing a picture. I was like, oh, this is so ridiculous. It's so much in your face and it's so huge. And oh, by the way, it's not June. It's not June. It's not good enough for just having the month of June. They got to go into May now. And I would only guarantee that it extends beyond. They got the extended period in July, too. So I guess it's Pride Summer now. That's it. It's Pride Summer. Grab a Bud Light and let's enjoy Pride Summer together. So...
Didn't Ford do something? Ford did too.
Oh,
with her truck.
the
You
Raptor.
own
Yeah.
man.
You got to get rid of it.
Yeah, jeez. You guys have to bring that up because I drive a Ford. By the
Hey,
way,
you brought up-
I bought a Ford because I was mad because the truck I owned before that was a Chevy, GM owned, and it was pre-bailout, government bailout. So I'm like, finally, Ford. They didn't take the bailout. You see what I'm saying? This is the problem. Dodge is tainted. GM's tainted. They took the government bailout. Ford did not. Now Ford goes woke with this ridiculous European commercial where they have a rainbow-colored Raptor.
Oh, is it only a European commercial?
Well, that's what I saw. I assume that's what it is, but
I've not seen that.
The problem
I
is
don't-
every corporation's doing it now. You can't run away from it. You just got to pick the least woke corporation.
so what's the
Or
least
just-
woke corporation? What do you guys think? What's the least woke corporation? What major corporation, and don't you say Black Rifle Coffee is woke again, William. You need facts to back up
I
that
sent you that
assertion.
video about the Chick-fil-A CEO.
Yeah, I know that. Well, yeah, but you saw my response.
Wouldn't
to
be
that,
like
right?
Menards, Hobby
Oh, yeah.
Lobby, very conservative. I think
That's
you're
true.
not seeing any rainbow gear in a Menards.
Well, Menards is one of the worst. Remember what they did during COVID? They actually required you to wear a mask, and you couldn't go shopping with your child. Screw Menards. I'm done with
Yeah.
Menards. That pissed me off so much. They did a mask mandate at Menards.
What
Did
do
you
mean
know
they-
this?
No, what do you mean they couldn't shop with your child?
They
kids
wouldn't let
couldn't
you
come in?
shop with your child because they were trying to restrict how many people could come in the store. So if you had a child, you couldn't come in Menards. It's like, what? Like, how many times do we go
That's right.
run to the hardware store with the kids? You know?
Well, Home
You're pulling
Depot's
down.
owned by conservatives, right?
Home Depot is publicly traded, so yeah, there's a lot of conservatives that own it, and probably a lot of
Well,
lefties.
right, but I thought it was run by conservatives.
I don't know. They seem to be pretty pro-America. So is Lowe's.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm saying is Menards, which comes from the great state of Wisconsin. I've not really shopped at Menards if I couldn't help
it's
it.
hard to equate though, because Target, Kohl's, Walmart, they sell clothing, which is going to cater to that trans movement. Whereas, what does a Menards sell or Home Depot sell that where they could really, rainbow-colored 2x4s? What?
Oh my God!
True.
And when you guys see
Rainbow-colored
those
circular
in the lumber
saws.
section, you know where they got the idea from. You heard it here first. Mark's predicting it. Rainbow-colored 2x4s.
Or saw, a skill saw or something. Drill, get your rainbow drill.
Yeah.
Probably.
okay.
That's the thing. Is
All
like,
right.
why? Why?
Think about
this
that. Think
thing?
how much that. See, look how bad Bud Light is doing right now because they don't know they forgot their audience. Now imagine DeWalt or Milwaukee does a rainbow-colored selection. Just think how that's tanking.
They'd be ruined.
They'd be ruined. Yeah, it's not like we're anti-gay person. It's just that we're sick and tired of getting pushed in our face.
That's the thing, is why this huge push. Huge. It's like just massive the last year. It's just crazy. And again, I don't care. Love who you want to love. I don't care about, but when it's put in my face like this, it pisses me off. And they knew that they were going to piss people off.
Well, and it's like that awesome little music video is. It's not necessarily just that. It's at us. It's about our kids. It's like targeting our kids. It's all okay. I don't think homosexuality is okay. Once again, I don't think it should be illegal. I'm not trying to make a moral argument here. I'm just saying that, quite frankly, I take a more traditional view of marriage, and I don't think that's the right way to go as a society, especially when you raise children, which is really what, in my opinion, marriage is about, is raising children.
Right,
I don't
and
think that's the right direction to go.
As a libertarian, though, you got to admit that in your own home, love who you want to love. We're not going to
Whatever you
go
wanna
and
do,
control people, but to have to, I won't be going to Target, but if I got to walk in there, my kids in this whole rainbow movement, and they're pushing it on the kids. Why?
Right. And by the way, I don't take that away from anything. Like you don't show your kids, because we have some boys that are the same age, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our 8-year-olds, we're not showing them like R-rated movies at this point for the same reason.
Right.
There's some things you don't want to show kids. They're just pushing it on them, and we've talked about this at great length in this show. The drag show hours, the drag story times, it's all towards the kids. That's what this is about. Is that really what the pushback is? I think that is. Target has done this for years, but all of a sudden they're like, this is right in the storefront. There's a kids section right now. Because I remember seeing that, and I was like, oh, God, they're just like putting these sayings on the shirts, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's like you'd said, it's the Marxist thing. It's just another division, oppressor, oppressed class. I think that's why it's a massive push the last, not even a year, this whole trans thing.
Or to keep us all divided as they go screw us with this debt ceiling, right?
Yeah.
Like, quite frankly, I don't care if you're trans, whatever. If you're on my side on this issue, good, let's save America, right? But maybe they want us divided. Now, we just take the bait, right? And we have to take the bait because, once again, I didn't talk about this issue until it became very apparent they just want to target our kids. And then you got to talk about the issue. Because it's really a problem, you know? I'm so sick of this crap being targeted at my kids. I'm as an adult, I can understand. I can... Listen, I'm not going to go to a drag show. I'm going to stay clear of those places.
Well, I mean, I think the bigger thing here, yeah, they're dividing us by class, but what they're also trying to do is make money for the pharmaceutical companies that make millions off of these trans surgeries. I think even millions per surgery, although that might not be the case. It's just
I don't agree with you on this one, William.
Really?
Yeah, because I think...
that's why Planned Parenthood is turning to trans surgeries now and hormone treatments.
Well, that would make
losing
sense for
money
them.
on abortion. Yeah.
That makes sense for them, but I'm saying like this big cultural change, like why the vaccine mandates. I think you can trace money. You know, we know pharmaceutical.
Well, it's a multifaceted thing. Like there are lots of benefits
100%.
for the elite.
But I'm just saying, like to me, the vaccine mandates and the vaccine pushed by our politicians, that's pretty easy. They are all bought and paid for by these stinking pharmaceutical companies, and so they became great salesmen for the pharmaceutical companies.
It could be even more nefarious, though, and that could fall in line with this whole trans thing, too, because, you know, they're showing now that it's screwing up fertility. The jabs are really, you know, men and women, fertility is an issue because of these jabs. And what if you have 25, 35% of the people that are non-binary or can't reproduce? I mean, is it population control to a certain degree?
Well, where I was going with that is, that makes sense from the grand scale here because lots of money to be made, especially everyone's getting the vaccine. The trans surgery, I don't think there's big special interest money there.
Based Minnesota said, Will is correct. Teva Pharmaceuticals out of Israel is the main supplier of trans hormone drugs.
Yeah, but that money that's involved is great for like small groups, like maybe even Planned Parenthood. But this massive scale where Target and
I don't see
Bud Light, they're all like
there.
they're bowing to this thing. It doesn't make sense.
Well,
There's not
again,
enough
like
money
BlackRock, and there are a few other huge corporations that have shares in these companies, but they're the ones pushing this down on their
but once again, it's like
affiliates.
It can't be that much money, right? In a microcosm, it's a ton of money, but it's just not that much because there's just not that many transgender. Well, first of all, there's no such thing as transgender kid. God, I gotta stop using their damn language.
Mm-hmm.
But the kids that they label as transgender who need gender-affirming surgery or gender-affirming care.
Right.
Sorry, not surgery, care. Boy, these are all the terms. Gender-affirming care, that's what they say.
But where does BlackRock have their shares? I imagine that they got to be invested in the healthcare industry.
Well, BlackRock's massive, though. Like,
right.
I mean, I guess anywhere they could squeeze.
Well, there are a
more
couple of
profit.
these big corporations. Again, I'm not well versed on this topic, so I need to go back and look again. But
well, you know what? That's fair. I mean, granted, you're right. If there's special interests like BlackRock, wherever you can squeeze more profit, the better, right?
I'm not saying it's exclusively profit. I do think there are nefarious goals here, and it very well could be a depopulation thing, which that's the scariest one in my opinion.
I believe that's what's happening.
But wait,
they openly talk
how's
about
that depopulation? Where's
when you have
all that-
25% of the people that can't reproduce because of these surgeries or they're gay, you're just gonna
Well,
have.
hold on one second. Okay, we gotta stop here. What are the numbers like?
By the way, are we
You're
still on
acting like
YouTube?
25%.
I think Facebook's down.
25% of the kids in high school or first year or two of college right now don't identify as their, the sex they're
25%.
25%.
No, that's
Yes.
No,
not true.
25% identifies as LGBT.
Yeah, something other than their gender.
25%
25%. And
Yep.
if they can, you
Can
know,
we-
that.
I want to. What's the? Give me a little fact check.
And let me tell you, when
25%. I know the number's going up, but
when
don't
I
think
was
it's a
out
quarter of the
knocking doors,
population.
it was more than one person said any kind of legislation, you have to take the perspective of population control. And that's obviously a Democrat door that I accidentally hit. But that is a mentality that these people are starting to take on. There's too many people in the world. There's too many people in the world.
According to NBC, 1 in 5 adult members of Gen Z self-identify as LGBTQ.
The latest numbers were 25%. I don't remember where I saw it.
I saw that too, so I'm gonna.
1 in 5 of Gen Z. What is wrong with your
It's
generation?
crazy. It used to be
I'm not
1%,
Gen Z.
Jake. When we were growing
you
up,
millennial?
it was 1%.
Wait, which one's which? I forget now.
Gen Z is the younger one.
Yeah, millennial.
You're
I'm
at,
Gen
you're at the
Z.
bottom end of the
Yeah.
millennial, and
Yeah.
you're the higher end of the Gen Z. Then, William.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So,
it's his-
1 in
his
5 of
generation.
people my
I guess
age.
you guys can't be the same generation. You go to church all the time. William's the heathen, so
Excuse me.
No, it was not a heathen.
Excuse me.
you're pretty regular, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, but not as like.
I'm the
Not
most,
not as much as Bridget. Probably.
I'm the most heathenistic out of all of us.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm leaving Deep State out of here. Deep State Dawson. He's
That's
he's
where
a
you're gonna make
gamer.
the actual
Well, he's in this-
change. I think that's the only answer to the actual problems in the world
So
is actually getting people back to church and to
So
God.
this is
Well,
crazy.
Bridget, first of all, Bridget, we were talking about you on your show the show the other day. We had to assume you were a single girl. You heard it right there. What a great girl right there. Turn back to. Sorry, didn't mean to make this a dating
I think I
service
found
here.
it. 1 in 4
Yeah.
high
But
school.
we were feeling some time. Actually, that was like
But it's
2 weeks
true.
ago.
So I
But that's a
thought,
great
this is
point.
20%.
And
1
honestly,
in 4 high school students identify
Like I literally
I don't
think
wanna sound
ultimately
like-
when it comes down to it, I'm like,
on the hill.
I just think it's a spiritual battle more than anything else. Like if you don't turn back to God, man cannot survive on his own.
12.25.
see, I don't want to sound like an old guy because there are the Dales of the world
CDC
walking around
numbers.
this joint, but
That's going to the CDC.
it's really nice
Yeah,
to hear
CDC
someone
says
from your
no,
generation
that
say
students
something like that
went
because you
from
just assume that's
11%
not being
to
said anymore.
26%.
I've
What do you
got
find
a
Yeah, I don't know.
The CDC says the number of LGBTQ students went from 11% in 2015 to 26% in 2021. This is an article from The Hill. 1 in 4 high school students identify as.
So in other words, the turning the
Yeah.
frogs gay is true, right? That's the.
I think there's
conspiracy?
a lot going on here. I think it's like the tap water. I think it's the
Plastics, and I know you think that's crazy, but they act like estrogen. These plastics in your body act as an estrogen. They're feminizing the men. Soy products do the same thing. This is fact. This
That's
is
why
not
I've cut out all
conspiracy.
soy. Jake, we got taken off of Facebook.
Yeah, we did.
Nah, I don't care.
Isn't that? But
We got
that's the
taken off
first
of
time
Facebook. Like
The stream is down on Facebook saying this.
Yeah, I saw
Um,
that.
That's the first time we've heard from Facebook in forever on this show.
Yeah, but do you think
That's
there's something
interesting.
nefarious here?
I don't know. I've never seen that
I don't know.
until right now.
Honestly, once again, I don't care. We get like.
Couldn't have been from the.
I
the
think we get
virus.
100 people that watch us on Facebook. We just put on Facebook because what is it to us? We could stream on that. Yeah.
Well, that's a big story, right? Facebook's taking A4L down.
Well,
again.
hold on. We got to make sure it's not just like a glitch. Remember, like the sanctimonious can.
Did they take your whole page
gosh.
down?
That's the question.
Somebody, P. Moore said, should the children be able to sue their parents if when they turn 18 they realize it was not their choice and was forced by their parents?
Okay, that I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I thought about
I
that
think they
this last
should.
week. Because, if we go ask the Lee Finkeys of the world, these legislators that are voting for this crazy transgender, gender affirming care, surgeries, and all that stuff, it's like, what do you say to the young child that went through this because of you who regrets it at 16?
it's
What is-
child abuse. You can sue your parents for
yeah.
child abuse.
Yeah.
And I think suing your doctor is a no-brainer too, because they can
correct,
stand
yes.
to profit here.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's any liability ever for a legislator, but pose that question to these politicians, the Judy Sebergs of the world that vote for this stuff. What do you say to that young child who got this affirming care at 6 years old, and then they grew up by 16 and they regret it because what did they know at 6 years old? What do you say to these people? And yes, what do you say to the parents and what do you say to the doctors? And can you sue them? It's a valid question.
Yeah,
and by the
to
way,
all.
lawsuit. How do you
Oh.
make your listen? If you lose your sexual reproduction ability, what's the compensation that you could possibly get,
Yeah.
right?
You can't put a number on that.
I mean, I guess like there are like getting back to chemicals and plastics. There are like certain chemicals that have literally, corporations have been liable because it's sterilized young children right?
Well, testosterone levels have gone down. Like, we're at the lowest point in history, and fertility problems are also at the lowest point
Yeah,
in
but
history as well.
testosterone levels continue to climb in our control room. Even
Dawson's making
I was
up for
already
it.
ready with that joke, Dawson, before you did that flex there. So, there's no mistaking now. Deep State Dawson is a man, because people were wondering before. You missed the.
I unmuted my mic to say
You missed
something. I
the
don't have anything
comment.
to say.
I just turned on the comments. Base Minnesota.
Oh, I did see it. I just haven't read it
Where
yet.
now is it buried? How many comments do we get? I don't read the
There's a
comments.
lot coming
Oh,
in. but
how about a Q&A show called The Beat with Bridget? Would be epic. There you go. I like
Q&A,
that
it's
idea.
scary, but maybe.
Oh yeah, she could do. Who's that girl from Daily Wire who reads the comments?
I don't know. I
But
don't
she
watch
has
Oh,
her whole
Brett
show.
Cooper.
Brett Cooper, that's
Yeah,
who
she
it
does
is.
the comment section.
Yeah.
She's actually getting a lot of traction, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, I've been ignoring comments. Let's go back to comments.
Yeah,
here.
we do have a lot of. Mike on, let's see where Rumble says, affirming care should have a statute of limitations giving those changed rights to sue parents and or doctors until 18, better yet 21.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tucker91 says, I say the legislators who pass these laws, whether knowingly or unknowingly, knowing the harmful effects, should be sued. And then P. Moore says, true, but the government is telling parents that they must follow the want of the child.
Yeah, and that's what these legislators are doing. They're saying that one parent, they're deciding which parent's right in this case in Minnesota. So the parent in Wisconsin that wants to protect their child is wrong, and we're not going to follow the laws of Wisconsin. We're going to allow them to come here in Minnesota. It's so utterly ridiculous, and it's definitely child abuse. Man.
I know of a couple, I'm not going to mention names, but there are some doctors who, I don't know if that section of the bill passed, but were, if you're a pediatrician, you'd be forced to give the kids
That was part of the
medicine.
conversion therapy ban.
So there are
right?
doctors that might leave the state, like, because just morally they're not going to give these kids the
I'm not aware
medicine.
of that being put in the law.
I don't
Mark,
think
but
it
that would be
was, but it
crazy.
was,
No,
it
I
was
think-
talked about.
I think this is part of the conversion therapy ban because they classify not affirming gender as conversion therapy.
Right, so like if a,
Yeah. Well, I thought he meant like actually providing like hormone treatment.
Well,
or
yeah,
something
if you
like
don't provide hormone treatments,
not-
you're not
Well,
affirming
that.
someone's
I never
gender.
thought of that.
So,
William.
yes,
So does
yeah.
that go through a psychiatrist then?
Hmm. I know a certain senator's wife that we may know of was really hyped about this. Hype's the wrong word.
Why
Very
are
He was
upset
on
about
Facebook,
this.
but
Oh, okay. I was like, why are you like
Got
hiding
knocked
the? All right.
yeah, I mean, if
Nice
they
quote there, William.
force doctors to do this to kids, and then would they be liable, like you said, 20 years down the road, 10 years down the road for causing harm to these kids?
Well, they better be.
Yeah.
But they're not. Once again, what's the direction we're heading in? And I don't know. I'm a little scared on this one because that is the move of the Marxists is to divide us and then provide rights to a group, and it becomes the oppressed group. And so doctors then are compelled to provide certain care.
Well,
So-
we're headed to a world where it's lab-grown babies. They've already just done it in Japan. Apparently, they're successful.
What
I mean,
on
that's
earth are you
when
talking
everyone's
about?
when everyone's
Do
non-binary.
we need to do
or
another
gay.
fact check here? What lab-grown babies?
Oh yeah, this totally just don't even need human beings anymore. So we can all be equal. We'll all be equal. We'll all be non-binary. Equality, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about equality. So if you're not a man or a woman,
I am a man, by the way. My testosterone level's still pretty high. Pretty high. A lot of people say my testosterone levels are good. I don't say it, but a lot of people. A lot of people. You know, I was watching his comments on. I keep wanting to say DeSanctimonious. Oh my God. God, he's got so much power in what he
know.
does.
I don't think it's his best nickname. I think Meatball Ron's funnier.
Yeah.
He started taking to calling him Rob DeSanctus, which I think is funny. Rob.
Yeah.
Like the nickname has just evolved so much.
But once again, Trump, silent, DeSanctus. God, I can't do it. That's why it's better than Meatball Ron. Because you say what's his name again?
DeSantis.
It worked on you.
It definitely works. I can't help it now. Ron DeSantis, a fine governor, if you will, from the great state of Florida. He's actually was speaking out against the debt ceiling increase, which is a good position for him to take. Same with Vivek.
Have you guys
Vivek-
covered
Ramaswamy.
DeSantis actually announcing
No,
it?
no. So we
We were
did
out-
our last Political Junkies episode the day before he announced. He's been very good on centralized currency, by the way, or cryptocurrency. Like he banned it in Florida. This new Fed Now thing. I think we've talked about it on the show
Yeah,
before.
we briefly discussed it.
Yeah.
Hey, before we sign off for today, I want to hear what you guys think we should talk about on the show. One topic that's been brought up, and I think we might talk about on Thursday, is Minnesota breaking off and becoming East Dakota or New Minnesota.
Yes.
We want to cover that subject. But tell us, what do you guys want us to research or to talk about? What are you interested in us covering here?
It's literally
we
our
also have to
job
get to Tucker's
research
rant.
this
We never
stuff.
did his Rumble rant.
Oh,
Ron
yeah.
Disaster. Tucker said that? Ron Disaster?
Yeah.
What's the rant?
I remember he said, pull up, let me see if I can find it.
To
again.
look up the Wikipedia entry for...
Yeah, read the Wikipedia page of the 1st Minnesota Regiment, specifically their casualty rate and actions at Gettysburg, and compare their bravery to the cowardice of men today.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, over 50% of them died in that battle. Yeah, it was crazy. It was, but they'll hold the line to the last man, which was a great.
You have to pull it up and read it. That was part of his
I don't know
request.
if is there a Wikipedia page?
I'm gonna probably just have to Google it.
Minnesota 1st Regiment.
Yeah.
Yeah, historic part of the Battle of Gettysburg.
And now we have them serving in the military.
Tough guys, and Civil War. That's a tough one because what a weird part for our nation, but. And of course, the left wants to get. Remember this? This seems ancient ago, but it was only like, 5-6 years ago. They wanted to get rid of all Confederate generals and statues and stuff like that. That was their
Yeah.
big push, and then they
Right.
solved it.
Yeah.
Then they did it right. But look at the brave men who stormed Normandy. Like, look at the heroes of World War II. If you haven't seen Band of Brothers, which is a shame if you haven't, go watch that. Those are different men. Today's world. Yeah.
Well, and that's what happens when you have unlimited prosperity. People get soft. And I never advocate for war. I never advocate for economic hardships. But those times are what create strong men.
Tell
And
us
we
more about
almost need-
strong men wearing that Hawaiian shirt there, William. I'm curious.
What? This
more.
is a very masculine shirt. I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe the most masculine, maybe ever.
A lot of people say.
It's patriotic colors, at least.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
true.
got to kick off the summer right. And today, a lot of people say today is the first day of summer, either yesterday or today.
Well, every Minnesotan knows the first day of summer is Memorial Day.
Right.
Like, everyone knows that. Certainly when you go up north. I was on the North Shore. It's amazing. It's just amazing. Like, where were all these it's like campers just all of a sudden came out of nowhere. And that's why I camp out of the regular season. I love fall camping and I love spring camping. And guess what, Mark? I ran into only four other backpackers, but there were groups of 2 on the SHT. Now we're on the north part of the SHT, but man, it's so nice to be in that woods alone. But after this weekend, everyone comes out, and some of you guys at home, I know, you get that RV cleaned out, you're heading up north, you're grabbing those prime spots, and you can deal with those bugs because I'm going to be out there in the fall.
Well, I would think at the Superior National Trail, you're any time of the year. I mean, not a lot of people on there.
Some places, though.
Really?
We looked at one of our favorite campsites, and there's like 4 or 5, I think it was like 5 vehicles at the trailhead. And I got to imagine the people that were parked at that trailhead were going to that campsite on this cool lake. So I was like, dang it. Well, we won't look up this on Wikipedia unless one of you guys found it. What else we got here?
We have, so Dover Dan said, was asking a question. Okay, so he says, okay, like people who have way overspent and then they can't make their payment, so that then they file for bankruptcy. So can the U.S. do that? If so, do we create a new currency backed by gold?
Read the first part of that one again.
Yeah, he said, so basically he said people who have way overspent and then they can't make their payments can file for bankruptcy. So can the U.S. do that? If so, then do we create a new currency?
Well, because basically what bankruptcy is like some legal protection. So you're like, it's like internal legal system, right, in the United States. So what's the internal legal system overlooking the United States? It's not like there's international law that we follow here. I mean, can you file for bankruptcy with the UN, right? So I don't know how that would work, but essentially we don't become bankrupt become insolvent, and so we pay back our creditors with less money. So let's put it this way. If we default on the debt, I guess there's many ways you could do it, because this happens also in bankruptcy proceedings, right? Because there's a procedure in how you pay off your creditors. And the point I'm trying to make here is, in bankruptcy, the court then specifies it. There's no one that can specify in the United States how it's done. It's going to be political. But you're going to have a process with whatever assets and money you have. Don't let me forget this, by the way, assets. That's the other problem. We have a balance sheet problem. But you're going to have a process, and I'm imagining what's going to happen is, instead of giving someone back 100% of their principal, we're going to give them back 80% of their principal. So if you gave the government $10,000 of your money, you're only going to get $8,000 back, and whatever the accrued interest is. You see what I'm saying? So it's not like you're completely not going to get anything back. I mean, if they did that. Although, Mark, once again, the oppressed might get all their money back, but the oppressors, the white people, the people with income over $200,000 that are creditors to the United States, they might actually be the ones that get a discount, 80% back. So that might be the course they take, because it's going to be political. There's no bankruptcy proceedings. There's no court that oversees the United States. So that's essentially what's going to happen, is you're just going to get less of your money back. Now, once again, I already said, we're already defaulting on our debt. Here's why we're defaulting on our debt. Because the money you're getting back right now is worth less money because they inflated the currency. So we're already defaulting on the debt. We're just still giving back the actual same amount plus interest, accrued interest, but we're not giving the same purchasing power back because your dollar buys less stuff. Did you know that? I don't know if you knew this. You don't buy as many stuff these days with the same amount of money.
Right. You mentioned 6 or 7% inflation. It's higher with what the everyday person is buying compared to a year and a half ago. It's
certainly healthcare. Yeah.
Well, even just a gallon of milk,
right.
A loaf of bread, a dozen eggs, gas. You're looking at 40-50%.
Plus, CPI takes out food and energy in their calculations, and that's what they state as inflation. So, yes, 100%, because those are volatile markets, so we can't put food and energy into it. So
it's like everything. Yeah. You go to the store. I notice this kind of stuff. I check every price, and you go to Costco, and it's like things are $2, $3. A $9 item is now $12, and so on, and even more when you're looking at eggs and bread and milk and a lot of things.
Well, look at cars and houses. I'm looking at houses right now, and prices have like doubled since like even 2 years ago, I think. There are no good starter homes anymore because the average house price, I think, is like $400,000.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
Is it $400,000 in Minnesota?
That's the average. Yeah.
In Minnesota or in the metro? It's got to be in the metro area. The suburbs, I'm guessing, is $400,000.
Probably, but
There's no
I work
way.
here, so.
Yeah. Dang.
Unless we're doing remote work.
Can I convince?
I wouldn't mind moving.
Can I
up
convince my family to sell our house
Well,
and live in an RV for a couple of years?
Hard to prep in an RV, Jake.
Actually, it's very easy to. Your bug out location is already figured out.
I suppose if you've got that.
Yeah. I want to talk about this, assets and liabilities. We have a balance sheet problem. So once again, we know our liabilities right now are 31 trillion and change, right? So what are our assets, right? If we have those as liabilities, balance sheets can also have assets. You got to balance them, right? What are assets? And that's the big question. Are we just going to sell our national parks? Like when the chickens come home to roost here, what are we liquidating to pay off this money?
I think the United States just fails to exist at that point. Like we just fall apart as a country, as a government, and that debt never gets paid back.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. And then think of what that does to especially the older people who are reliant on that fixed income because they're buying U.S. Treasuries either directly or indirectly. So they're really relying on that income. And then also all of us with 401ks or other investment tools that are no longer going to get it. So, yeah, you have a massive problem. Banks go under. Banks who own lots of treasuries go under right away. And then they're going to take your cash, which is another reason why don't put all your eggs in one basket. So it's a big, big problem. But what are the assets that we liquidate? And I got to wonder, do we sell real estate in Washington, D.C.? Do we sell our national parks? By the way, all that stuff alone won't count for it. Are in the asset column of the U.S. government, is it humans?
Well, yeah, gold. Is gold?
No, gold wouldn't solve this thing. Yeah, right? There's not enough gold there to solve it. So what's the other thing in the asset column? Human beings? Us?
Yeah.
Is that it? Are we going to be sold in some regards for this whole thing? Like, how on earth do we pay for this thing? We actually have a big balance sheet problem here. So, no, I mean, if a company goes through bankruptcy, they still have assets. They probably, let's just call like a brick and mortar company. They still probably own property. They probably have, let's say it's a construction company. They own, bunch of equipment, right? It's not like they're worth zero. They just have more liabilities and they can't fund it. They didn't have the cash flow. So eventually they go through a liquidation. So what's the government's liquidation? What are the assets they are going to liquidate? That's a real problem. That's the scary thing. And yes, you're right, William. Possibly we end up ceasing to exist as a country. Certainly we're going to cease to exist to make good on that debt. And I think there's a misconception. People think that most of the debt is held by China. China only has the majority. Look this up, Dawson. Look at who owns U.S. debt.
I think Coca-Cola owns a ton of it.
Well, not a ton of it. I mean, Coca-Cola would own a small amount.
It's not a small amount. I think they're the next biggest after China.
There's $31 trillion. I mean, Coca-Cola is not even $1 trillion company. Most of it's domestic. The Fed owns a large, substantial amount of it.
I heard
China
somewhere
just
it
owns
was
the
Coke.
most foreign. I
Let
know
me
what I'm
look
talking
at-
about here, William. Coca-Cola is not a $1 trillion company. How would they
Well,
own
no,
that much?
but it's the next biggest.
Foreign investors,
They might be the biggest.
29%. U.S. government, 27%. U.S. investors. Oh, no, that's the national debt. Who owns the U.S. national
Yeah,
debt?
who owns the national debt? That's what we're saying.
Well, it says here 32% is owned by U.S. investors.
Okay, so there you go. Domestically,
11%
32%.
by the Federal Reserve. 27% by the United States government. And
So-
then 29% by foreign investors.
Okay, so you see what I'm saying? So only 29% are owned by foreign, and then of the foreign investors, China is the largest one. And by the way, so just think about this: China is why does China own so many U.S. securities or U.S. debt? It's because they sell more stuff to us than they buy from us. So there's a trade deficit. They call it a trade deficit. There's really not a trade deficit. Instead of us sending them goods, we send them U.S. treasuries, and they invest their money in the U.S. treasuries, right? Well, eventually they're going to be like, well, we're not going to get paid back this U.S. treasury. So what did they end up doing with that money? Buy U.S. companies, right? Buy U.S. real estate. Anyone seeing this happening by Chinese investors, right?
Buying our farmland.
Buying farmland, buying real estate, buying pork-producing companies. Because essentially, what good is it for them just to hold on to U.S. treasuries? They eventually want to buy stuff, I don't want to just hold on to U.S. dollars to hold on to U.S. dollars. It's got to go to stuff. I'm getting long-winded here. Let's finish out with comments. Did anyone comment on what they want to hear us cover as a topic? I'm guessing everyone's going to want to hear us talk about East Dakota.
I actually don't know if anybody answered that question. I didn't see them coming in. But on YouTube, Epic CJ Williams came back to that bill he was referring to. Said it was HF 1960. But he said in the House it classifies IT as critical infrastructure. They argue it will help us get government funding, I'm guessing.
Did you say
Quickly.
1960? HF?
Yeah, and I looked it up, and it looks like it passed the House, but not the Senate. It only has a second reading in the Senate.
Well, here's the problem: is did it get added into
Yeah, I
a
know.
omnibus bill?
Yeah.
Oh, weird. Nash is on this.
I have to look into this a little bit more. Bonner, Nash.
Oh, it passed
Elkins.
122-0 in the House. Jeez. Yeah, I'm sure it ended up in an omnibus bill.
And then it does something about emergency powers.
Yeah, basically allowing them to use funds
I
during
see
emergency.
relating to emergency management. Let's see if it does something to Chapter 12. Chapter 12. I'm not seeing any reference to Chapter 12 here. Well, I have to look into this more, but yeah, I'm not aware of something here. Oh wait, I went right to it. Governor's powers to fast provide emergency aid. So it adds something into a section that's already in law. So the governor can enter into contracts and incur obligations necessary to combat the disaster by protecting the health and safety of persons, the safety of property, and then they add, and the safety of the state's information and telecommunication technology infrastructure systems or services. I guess I got to wrap my head around why that would be a huge... Oh, you know what? If I go above this... Okay, here we go. This is what he's referring to. Declaration of peacetime emergency. The government may declare peacetime emergency. A peacetime declaration of emergency may be declared only when any of the following endangers life and property and local government resources are inadequate to handle the situations. And already in law is an act of nature, a technological failure or malfunction, a terrorist incident. They add a cyber attack, including a physical or electronic attack on the state's information, telecommunication, technology, infrastructure, systems, or services.
Huh.
And then industrial accident, hazardous materials, or a civil disturbance. And they actually cross out something where this is interesting. A civil disturbance that crosses out endangers life and property and local government resources are inadequate to handle the situation. Were we not tracking this?
This is the first I'm hearing about it.
I think we did come across this earlier. But it did not pass the Senate. See, that is an issue, and it's interesting it passed 122 to 0. So Republicans were like, oh, yeah, that's fine. Let's add more reasons. I could go on a whole show about why Republicans in general are bad on emergency powers. We fought against these guys all the time on the Never Again bill. They were against the Never Again bill. Like, hey, how about you don't let a governor just declare an emergency? Now, did you guys hear in any of those 7 anything that said pandemic or virus? It's not in there. They took the act of nature as if that was the reason. But act of nature means like a hurricane, or not hurricane in Minnesota.
By definition, COVID was not a natural disaster.
Right. But they started
the
it.
grand conspiracy is so that it fits into the emergency powers of Minnesota, right?
Right.
We can't let the origins be known. So technically, the governor never had the right to call that emergency in the first place. The other thing is they get rid of in here that endangers life and property and local government resources are inadequate to handle the situation. Very interesting. So now the governor can call... Essentially, what this thing does, this is actually what I find to be the most concerning. The governor can declare a peacetime emergency if there's a civil disturbance. What the hell does that mean? 2 people? That'd be ridiculous, the politics of it. But essentially, they got rid of everything that would prohibit him from calling a emergency for something very small.
Mm-hmm.
Like 5 people made it into the state capitol when they shut it down. And it's an insurrection. That's a civil disturbance. We can call emergency powers. Once again, I don't know how concerned I get about this nowadays because, as we just alluded to, he'll call an emergency powers anyway. He couldn't do it during COVID, but they did it. And the courts said, oh, yeah, that's fine. So the whole system's really messed up when it comes to emergency powers. Who was that? K-Wall that found that?
Epic CJ Williams.
Thanks for bringing that up. We'll get on top of that. That was a really good find.
And then Dover Dan says, who do we really owe the money to? Do other countries come in and take over our land?
Well, I think that's the question. It's like, what are the assets? If you're, obviously, as we alluded to in the bankruptcy proceeding, the courts then come in and say, well, you actually owe money, and creditors are the top of the line. The shareholders are the last of the line, right? So the creditors have high priority, and so you have to liquidate assets. I guess if you didn't liquidate assets, then the creditors just walk away with like equipment or something that the company gives up, But what are the assets that the United States has? And so, yeah, fair point. Does China get to come over and say, well, Yellowstone's ours now? Obviously, that would probably lead to war, but
that's the thing is we still have our military.
Right.
It's just what happens to the world economy then, and what truly happens to the value of our currency.
But think about this, Mark. China goes, oh, so we don't get Yellowstone. Well, then we'll take the Everglades. I don't know. Why would they want the Everglades? That's a bad example.
I think we're more likely to go to war before we forfeit anything. I think.
But this is the point I'm trying to make, William.
Yeah.
Is we say, no, you don't get any of that stuff. They go, but you're not paying us back. So what do they do then? They go to war. So if they come and take, we go to war, and if we don't pay, they go to war against us. You see how politicians have completely screwed us over? Like, what's the scenario that comes out of this thing that's good? So I've talked way too much here. We rambled on almost 2 hours. I hope you guys enjoyed this. We do appreciate your comments and Rumble Rants.
Before you go, really quick, some people were saying about, because you asked what they want to hear about on the next show, but someone that Base Minnesota says, great to see Mark. Him, Mortensen, Walter Hudson, and Harry Niska are my favorite representatives. So, like, and I think it's the same. I don't know if Base Minnesota is the same person over here on YouTube. But James Roberts said, more night streams. The recent one with Mort was great. And then...
Thank you.
That was
I actually
fun.
ran into Mort. He was up at his cabin. I was up by his area.
So Napkinator says, I would like to see some info on citizens moving out of Minnesota.
Yeah, I think that's what we'll talk about on Thursday. I think so.
We can be ready to talk about that by Thursday.
Yeah. Well, the problem is, William, what other stories come up by Thursday? Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah, we never know. So I think that's what we'll plan on talking about Thursday is a new Minnesota. How do you actually leave this Minnesota and form something new? Because, quite frankly, it's like, I asked Howard Root if he'd come on the show and talk about his column in the Star Tribune. And he responds back, no, I've given up on Minnesota. I'm done. It's like, well, I know that's the name of your article, but I know you have done some media on it, Howard. Jeez. So anyhow, he chickened out. He didn't want to come on. Just kidding. Howard's actually a pretty tough guy. Like, that guy took on the Obama Justice Department, so I don't think that guy shied away from it. But it's a valid question, and I get this every week. It's almost a daily basis now. I left Minnesota, and I don't blame these people, by the way. But there's a lot of us that really can't leave Minnesota. It's not easy for us to leave Minnesota, but Minnesota's gone so bad down the wrong road. It's like, can we carve out the metro area and just make us a new Minnesota? So I want to get into that subject. I know a lot of people want us to talk about that.
The metro area, except for my house, include that in the new.
Well,
Minnesota.
yeah. I mean, let's be honest. You got to carve out a little bit of Washington County, right?
Right.
Right, Mark.
Who knows how?
St. Elmo's in the greater
I mean,
Minnesota.
if that could really happen, I don't know. I mean, you'd have to.
Napkinator's question almost seems like he's asking if we have, like, I don't know, I read it as, like, is there any data on, like, numbers of people? citizens moving
Yes,
out of
there is. The
Minnesota?
IRS releases it. We could. I wish I could pull this up on the fly. I don't know.
There actually, of all publications, the Minnesota Reformer just put out an article. I don't remember all the details. Minnesota did gain some people, but way less than the forecasted.
Yeah, Teetwall's new, I think.
We're losing people, mostly conservatives. Liberals are moving here. It's the political climate, so it's becoming more and more liberal every single day.
Well, there's a it's migration data. Okay, I just found it. We'll talk about this and we'll close out the show here. I'm gonna send this to you, Dawson, in the show thread. Is he cursing?
I think he's angry.
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing.
I don't see why you want to stop now. Let's go for another couple hours.
Don't you think this is something we should talk about on Thursday? If that's going to be the theme of Thursday's
Isn't that literally what the
episode?
show's going to be about?
Well, too bad. I'm on the topic now. I'm gonna be courteous. I'll give it 3 minutes. That's it. Okay, and then we'll shut down the show.
Where did you put it?
Cell B8. B8. Bingo. Wouldn't that be funny? We should play bingo on this show.
That would be fun.
The real bingo. This is it's called migration data. IRS publishes it. This is data as of 2021. It would be the most recent one that they have. I posted it in here and then I deleted it. Why did I do that? I should have done that on my screen. So if you look, you can find data by individual state. So you see on the bottom, you'll see Minnesota, and it pulls up a spreadsheet. I don't know if you can do that. It does show up. Okay, perfect. You got to zoom in quite a bit there, Dawson. And what it does is it shows state inflow and state outflow. There's 4 tabs on the bottom, and they even go into county, okay? But you can find where so go to the tab that says state outflow, and that's going to show how many people are leaving and where they're going. So here it shows Minnesota outflow to another state in 2021 was 58,000. This is E8 was 58,258. That's 58,258 returns. I'm imagining that's like probably a factor 1.6 or something like that, because most of those are going to be couples filing jointly. So just because it says return, it doesn't mean the person. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. Right next to it, number of individuals. And I was pretty close. Probably a factor 1.6. So 98,470 people left Minnesota, and they took with them, and this is column G in row 8, they took with them 5, and I think that's in thousands. So that's $5 billion in adjusted gross income. You see that? Okay, yeah, you got it highlighted. Now go back to the state inflow, and you'll see in column F8, only 82,396 people came to Minnesota from a different state. So we had a net export. There's more people that left. But more importantly, who left? And the row or the column next to it, $3.448 billion in adjusted gross income came into the state. So in other words, we lost $1.5 billion in adjusted gross income, or just lack of better terms, $1.5 billion worth of income people were earning left our state of Minnesota. That's a lot. And that was 2 years ago. I imagine 2022 was even worse. Mm-hmm. So there you go. Those are the numbers according to IRS data, because obviously the IRS gets filers and they know which states people move to. And then it actually breaks it down. If you go back to that real quick, and maybe we could talk about that on the program, you can see where the majority of them went. And you could see here, if you go to the outflow tab on the bottom, it's amazing how quick Dawson is. He's never looked at this document before, and he's just on the fly. But if you look at F12, the majority of individuals go to Wisconsin. Makes sense, right? Culture is the same, and it's right across the border. So that's 13,922. The next one is Florida, which makes sense to all of us that kind of are in the know, but it doesn't make sense. You know, if you don't live here, you'd be like, wait, that many people left that far away? But more importantly, the total income of people is only 639 million that went to Wisconsin. 941 million went to Florida. So in other words, what I'm reading in that is higher income earners went to Florida over Wisconsin. Not shocking to anyone here, right? We all understand it, but the data actually shows that that's what's happening. And then, of course, you got to compare that to the inflows, because obviously we're getting people from Wisconsin coming here and Florida. But then if you look at the income levels, it's a far different picture. We're not importing a bunch of business owners from Florida. I'll just put it that way. We are exporting a lot of them to Florida. So fascinating question. Maybe we'll dig into it.
It's actually very ironic. My wife just sent me a realtor.com for Wisconsin. It's like, if interest rates weren't so high, we'd have already moved. And I think that's the case for thousands of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk about that after the show. That's a good topic. All right.
Epic CJ Williams said this is like a Minnesota goodbye.
Yeah, well, that was the name of the title, wasn't it? Goodbye Minnesota or something like that. So
I think he's saying
he's
how
saying
long
us,
we're going.
You talk about how Munson did bring up a bill in 2021 to give counties the opportunity.
There you go. Maybe we could have Munson on the show to talk about that. All right.
That would be a fun one.
Thank you. All right. Dawson's got to go get his protein fix. You know,
he's got to do my show. He's got to eat between.
Oh yeah, you got a show too.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I got it.
That's why he's like, get out of here.
You see, he gets so grumpy. He gets so hungry. He gets grumpy.
That's okay, but to be fair,
I'm
that's like
pretty
the
hungry, too.
studio manager. That's like half of my job is to be
Being
grouchy
hungry?
with people.
Oh,
It's to be what?
Is to be grouchy with people that aren't on schedule.
Yeah, but we're
that's
live.
normal.
This is not good, Dawson. Everyone
it's a
gets to
hang.
see it now.
It's a hang.
They see. It's my
Good
fault.
one, I know.
Whenever something goes wrong,
Casual
it's a
hang.
hang.
It's my fault, I
hang.
guess. Here, you see the abusive relationship I have with Dawson. It's unfair. And by the way, he's calling all the shots. Deep State Dawson. We don't know who he works for. We think the CIA.
They have no
He
idea.
just randomly showed up one day.
By the way, guess who's not going to be hurt by these budget cuts? CIA, because they have their own budget. They raise their own money, secret, not giving it to Congress. They'll be just fine.
We should dive into that topic right now.
Yeah, I think so too.
We got time.
Well, okay, let's pull up. Okay, all right, we're done. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you next. We'll see you on Thursday. Take care.